Enjoy early access to ad-free episodes each week when you subscribe to Wedding Planning Podcast Premium in Apple Podcasts. Enjoy the show. Today on the Wedding Planning Podcast, we're joined by very special guest, Tanya Pushkine from the Vow Whisperer. Tanya offers professional vow writing support, officiant services, and even wedding ceremony production support, including public speaking coaching. Tanya helps you put your heart into words, resulting in crafted wedding vows that are truly meaningful to you and your partner. Stay tuned as she takes us behind the scenes of her process, shares best practices for creating your wedding vows and ceremony flow, and so much more. That's all coming up next on the Wedding Planning Podcast. I'd love for you to just start by introducing yourself and telling us about Tanya and the Vow Whisperer.
Okay. Hi, I am Tanya Pushkine, also known as the Vow Whisperer, which I will get into how I got that name eventually. I have a business that originally started and is probably the crux of it, helping couples with their vows, and I'll explain what that process is like. I coach a lot of family members and friends to officiate. I'll take it off their shoulders completely. And I marry people and I help couples with speeches. So a wide variety of different services. I've been doing this for a little over 4.5 years, coming from an actress for 10 years and then being in the corporate world for a while, and then completely reinventing myself into the wedding industry.
Very good. So can you tell us a little bit more about the Vow Whisperer, what you do, who you help, and what working with you would look like?
Absolutely. So if you come to me for vows, and very often a couple will come to have me marry them and work on their vows and potentially do speeches. The more I do, the more I work with the couple, the more of it's a very intimate relationship that we create, because there is so much that we touch upon that is very soulful, very meaningful, very important to who they are. And so I, as a vendor in the wedding industry, I might go actually quite deeper than any other vendor does. When I help couples with the vows, what's important to note is I'm not the vow writer. There are vow writers out there, not a lot, but a few, who you can get interviewed by them. They'll turn around something within a week, give you your full set of vows, and you're done. My method is very different. It's not that it's better or worse, whatever, it's just different. What I do is, first of all, I work separately with each person. I really believe that it should be top secret until the moment of in the ceremony. So better not to discuss it. Other than if you are going to write your vows and you don't have my help or someone else's help, at least figure out the length of time, agree to that, and agree to the vibe and the tone that you want to have for your vows. So I work separately with each one. It starts with a questionnaire. It's a questionnaire that I ask people to sit with for about a month if we have the luxury of that time. And this vow questionnaire is very thought-provoking. You keep coming back to it over and over and over again because the questions are somewhat vague on purpose. And you might answer some questions today with, for example, what are some of the qualities that you love about her? And you might think of 7 things today and 27,000 more things as you're driving your car to work or riding the subway or whatever it is. So you just keep coming back to it. It's also a document that really forces you to go back in time to all those amazing moments you've had together, the stories you've shared, the anecdotes that you've also shared, some obstacles that you've worked through to get, to the point where you are now. There are a lot of very meaningful questions. And so it brings out a lot. And you're basically just reliving all this as you're writing. And when you feel you've answered the questions as best as you can, they come back to me. I take your words and I craft your vows out of your words. I don't rewrite. I do eventually if needed. But the first phase, I'm really creating a draft with your words, a beginning, a middle, and an end, a structure, a flow. And then that's really the launching pad. Then collaboratively, we edit and we finesse it until it's pretty much, it's done. That's phase one. Phase two, which I think is just as important, is the delivery of it. You have written the most extraordinarily beautiful words, but if you sound so monotone and flatlining and with no expression, people are just going to go, when's cocktail hour? When is this over? And that's not what we want. We want your guests to be mesmerized by what you're saying. We want them to be just completely captivated and blown away by those 3 or 4 minutes of you saying the vows to your future spouse. So we work on the delivery. I'm the other person, and we practice on Zoom as if it's the real thing. And I'll give all kinds of tips and tricks, and we'll work on enunciation of words. A lot of people mumble, how to project your voice. I catch you on every little tiny fidgety gesture you have. So body language is important. How to make eye contact with the other person. There are so many things that go into this. And I get you completely ready and confident to do this. And there are plenty of people who don't want to do it because of their fear of speaking, public speaking. And I work through all that with people, and we get to a place that they've succumbed to their fears are no longer these paralyzing fears, which can be, or if they're really paralyzing, I tell people, don't torture yourself and don't do this. Like, exchange a letter or do it at the first look, but don't go through this if this is so painful. So the vows are a very big service. I marry people, and my process in crafting a ceremony is the same thing as if I'm coaching a family member or a friend to do your ceremony. And nowadays, there's a statistic that just came out that 72% of weddings in the US are officiated by a family member or a friend, and that is a huge number. Then we have professional officiants, and then we have clergy. So it's, priests or rabbis or high priestesses or whatever they are. So this is, it's a huge part of my business because, couples don't always realize that when they're asking their uncle or their best friend or whoever it is to officiate, that's a massive ask. That's big. This person freaks out and says, oh my God, yeah, I want to, but inside they're thinking, I have to Google how to write a wedding ceremony. It's a lot of work. I take that work off their shoulders. They don't have to write the ceremony. The couple will have hired me, usually, and I work with the couple just as if I was marrying them. We do the same thing. If their family or friend is marrying them, we craft the ceremony together. What I will do with the friend or the family member is work on the little part that they have to do after they've welcomed everyone. It's their 3 or 4 minutes of why they're standing there. Who are they? Why are they marrying you? I am Uncle blah blah, or I'm best friend Sally, and I'm here marrying, you know, Mallory and Philip because blah 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 blah. And so we work on that part. And then I will coach them on all the logistics. And we practice as often as they want to practice the ceremony. It's all the logistics from please rise to please be seated, very often forgotten, to how to get out of the photographer's frame when it's the kiss. It's all these little things that unless you've been coached on, you don't know about. So that's a very, very big part of my business. and then speeches and toasts for, anyone who wants to do it. And that's it. I think I've covered the services.
Amazing. I love that. I think one of the things I've seen time and time again working with couples is that the ceremony and the vows tend to get pushed to the end of the planning timeline. What advice do you have in terms of when should this be on a couple's radar? Terms of when should this be on a couple's radar? Should it be immediately after being engaged? Should it be 6 months? I know there's probably not a one size fits all answer, but how can we start to think about this early enough that there is enough time to let that emotion develop and to let those feelings develop and to create a relationship with you, create a comfort with being on stage? Tell us about that.
So you're absolutely right. There's no one size fits all. And people come to me at all times in their wedding planning journey. I used to say, oh, don't come to me until 2 months before. And it is so not accurate. That's the most stressful time for a couple. And so let's avoid that completely. We might do practice sessions those last couple of months, but let's start as early as possible. Let's get the ceremony done. Since the pandemic, there's a much shorter lead time, I think. People used to be 18 months, 2 years ahead of time. I did get an inquiry yesterday for 2026, but that was just like, whoa, I haven't seen one like that in a long time. So I say 6 months, 8 months, a year before. Let's do it when you're still chill and relaxed and you can access all those wonderful inner feelings and emotions that you have when you're not just like, seating charts, you know. So the longer the better. But of course, there are plenty of people who come to me last minute, and sometimes we don't even have the time to do my method. Sometimes it's so last minute that I do have a vow writer on my team, and that's a different process. It's like I mentioned before, it's getting interviewed. Boom, boom, your vows are written within 48 hours. We get a few practice sessions in, and off you go. So it's possible. It's just a different method.
Very good. And then, having seen as many weddings unfold as you have, can you share maybe a handful, two or three, of what are like the major elements that the most unique and the most unforgettable ceremonies, what do they share or what do they have in common? And how can couples have that in the back of their mind as they start this process?
It's a really great question. So I proudly state that I create epic wedding ceremony experiences. What does that mean? I really believe that these 20 to 30 minutes, and definitely not more than 30 minutes, are, first of all, it's the start of everything. It's people have just arrived ready to spend the next 4 to 6 hours with you, dancing and partying and eating and drinking and dancing, everything. This is the first touch point they're getting. This is also the start of your marriage, not just the start of your wedding day celebration. This is the beginning. These 20 to 30 minutes are so important. It's setting the foundation. And my goal, whether I'm marrying you, coaching whatever it is, my goal is for your guests to walk away from this experience not only mesmerized and engaged, blown away, but not bored. They have witnessed something that you have created that really shows it's the reflection of who you are as a couple and as individuals. So the goal is for your guests to walk away saying, wow, that was exactly who they are. And how do we get there? So, yes, there's the traditional ceremony, but I love when I can find something in their ancestry or their background that we can bring in, some cultural thing in their background. Where are your grandparents from? Where are your parents from? Let's find something they did at their wedding, which is not done anymore. Or let's find some ritual in your ethnicity that we could bring in that's really fun and cool. Readings and poems. Let's not just pick a reading for the sake of the reading, but let's pick something that really means something to you. Is it lyrics of a song? Is it quotes from your favorite movie? Is it your favorite poet? Should we translate it into your native language? All of these different things. I love finding um, these extra nuggets to make your ceremony unique. Let's involve other people. If, sometimes there are children, couples have children before getting married. Sometimes there are a bunch of little toddlers running around. Can we involve them? Can we involve your parents somehow? Is it a ceremony that I very often will co-officiate with a rabbi or a priest, so that we bring in the religious part, but we bring in the non-religious part. We bring some fun things that the priest or the rabbi would never do. So I love just being as original as possible. Now, very often, I have plenty of couples who say, my family's from Michigan or Wisconsin. We don't go beyond that. And I said, okay, fine. So we won't bring in a heritage that does not exist, but we'll find something else. So I'm always about making a ceremony unique, keeping people, your guests actively involved and engaged and part of the whole ceremony as much as possible.
That's a really beautiful way of describing it when you think of where two people came from and then taking each of their backgrounds. And isn't that just the essence of marriage anyway, but really tying in the exact specific cultural or emotional or traditional elements from both of them, and then to embody that within a ceremony is so special.
And I love when two people are from such diverse backgrounds. I recently did a Muslim woman from the Philippines marrying a devout Christian from Guyana. So, it was like, wow, I had so much to work with. I love that stuff. Love
That's
that.
so
Yeah.
sweet. We had just a personal story quickly. When my sister got married, she asked my children, I have a daughter and a son, and at the time they were 8 and 10. And she asked both of them to compose a letter of what love meant to them and then read it during their ceremony. I almost start to choke up thinking
Oh,
about it. But we left it completely up to them. We said, do this on your own. No one's going to guide you or tell you how to write it, because she just really wanted to see what came from their hearts. And my sweet little son gets up
oh.
during the ceremony. We actually had them do it at the rehearsal just so that
Mm.
they could practice the act of reading it. But that was the surprise at the rehearsal. And the first line of his letter was, I love baseball. And then it it went on to describe his love of baseball. And at the end, he tied the way he feels about baseball to the way that his Auntie Katie now feels about Uncle John. And
Oh, but this is
it was
okay.
the
I'm
cutest.
I'm I'm actually getting teary-eyed. This is so sweet, and it was your children. I'm going to use this. This is a great idea.
It was the most innocent
Oh,
expression. And what made it so special, and again, they were 8 and 10. So this isn't something you could necessarily get away with a 4-year-old or a
right,
5-year-old. I
right,
mean, they're of an
sure.
age where they can write and communicate, but the innocence of it being that no one had helped them compose any of it and they just came up with it themselves. It was really, really special.
That sounds just lovely.
It was
Wow.
really neat. So tying in again those really personal
Mm,
elements is so meaningful. I love that. So speaking of getting choked up, I am personally a very emotional person, and I will choke up at a memory, or I was a mess during my own wedding ceremony.
yeah.
What tips or advice do you have for maybe being able to master your emotions in that moment? And I say that not that you want to suppress them or hide them, but that you're not such a blubbering mess that you just break down and can't carry forward.
I encourage people not to have a fear of crying. because that will torture. I mean, it's just get over the fear because it's okay if you cry. Now, you're talking about becoming a blubbering mess everywhere, right? So that's when I say, first of all, it's okay to cry, and the guests love crying. I mean, it's an emotional thing that people just love. If you are really falling apart, just stop and breathe. No one's going anywhere. There's no rush. Gather yourself, get a clean. I mean, I've had brides and grooms in the middle of a ceremony just say, Tanya, just, and I always have a Kleenex, whatever, and I'll breathe with them, and we'll take a full minute if that's what it takes. It's okay. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Hopefully, we will have practiced enough, or they will have practiced enough and cried in their practice sessions that it might be toned down a little bit, but if it is, it's okay. You'll get through it.
It's
The worst
beautiful,
is fighting it. It's fighting it that I say try not to do.
beautiful advice for life in general. What would you advise that we skip or leave out?
So the vibe, let's talk about that first. The vibe is really about, if one of the two people is just hysterically funny, cracks jokes nonstop anyway in life, they're probably going to do their vows that way. But let's say they are marrying, their partner is somebody who's actually super serious and does not have this comedic ability. You guys need to balance each other out somehow. Find a way that you're both going to agree. Okay, you really want to crack some jokes? Let's say two or three, no more. Let's at least agree to. So avoiding, I would say anything that's just, well, obviously inappropriate, but also inside jokes. Nobody understands them. Like, you don't need to reiterate something that you two find really funny, but no one else will. And then it'll become a very sort of heavy moment of silence in a way, like nobody will really appreciate it. No one will laugh. So just keep out this inside joke. I have very rarely have I come across working with somebody where I have found that they are crossing a line that they shouldn't. It's happened a couple of times when I'll tell you the story. I mean, it was early on when I first started, and this couple had met in rehab and heroin rehab. And what came out in their words was a lot of stuff that was just too heavy to talk about. That as a guest, I would have sat there and thought, why are they getting married? So we had to start from scratch. It was just too intense. Yes, they had been through some very, very difficult times, but this was not the place to share that. So I said before, you can write about obstacles that you've overcome as a couple, and that's okay. We went through, I mean, everyone went through the pandemic. That's not an obstacle anymore because everyone went through that. But, we did go through some very trying times with blah, 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 blah. And look where we are now. And it's just a mention of something that we worked so hard to get through. And we made it. But beyond that, just don't get too descriptive.
What advice would you share with a couple who feels a little bit stuck and like maybe they don't know how to get? I do this often when I sit down to create something. Once you get started, it's easy and it
Right.
comes, but how do you get to that point? Or what would you suggest to a couple who's maybe experiencing writer's block or just an emotional block that's not quite allowing them to get to the free-flowing creation process?
I think one thing to help you with the writer's block or feeling like you can't touch what's inside you, maybe to start with a brain dump and not just understand that maybe today is not the day, and maybe tomorrow or next week, you'll feel closer to the idea of sitting down. But don't sit down and say, I have to write my vows, because that already is like, ugh! Just say to yourself, okay, let's do a brain dump of everything that I feel how has he made me a better person? Find one question. Don't overwhelm yourself with, oh my God, there's so much I have to write about and so much I need to talk about it. Blah, blah, blah. Just think of one thing. Don't put the pressure on yourself. The more pressure you put on yourself, the harder this is going to be. And when I say wait till next week, give yourself plenty of time so that you do have next week and the month later to tackle this. Because today might not be the day, and next week might not be either. And I think working with me, the questionnaire really launches you. It's like, okay, I know exactly what I need to answer. If you're Googling, how do I write my vows? Very often you'll come across wonderful questions. Use those. Do one at a time. Don't put pressure on yourself. I need to write, 800 words right now. Can't. My son is a writer. He's a writer for a living. He gets writer's block all the time. Don't be too hard on yourself is my biggest form of advice.
Very good. And leave yourselves plenty of time.
Mm-hmm. That person who's writing their vows on the napkin the night before at the cocktail party, and I've had those. Not a good idea.
So if you would share with us, where can listeners find you? Where can we get more information about working with you?
My website is thevowwhisperer.com. All my social media handles are at The Vow Whisperer. And on my website, there's a form to contact me. It's probably the easiest. I don't ask a lot of questions, so it doesn't take any time to fill that out. I know sometimes when I go on a form, it's like, oh no, I have to answer I don't. You just give me your phone number and your email and we're good. And the date of your wedding. And then usually, if you want to work with me, we do a Zoom. We talk through everything that you might need, and it goes from there.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you, Cara. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Really.